the introduction?
It would be where I have it is in the introduction to the recommendation. So halfway into the report, not the introduction to the whole report. I do reference it in the executive summary. What I say in the executive summary is part 2 of the report provides the legal basis for Maryland to remedy its legacy of racial terror lynchings and puts forth 129 recommendations designed to do so. So I reference it there, but I don't go into the details until that part 2 section starts. I'm just trying to do a quick scan. I did some reorganization in the intro part of the report. Just kind of like tried to streamline things a little bit where there was some repetition between, talking about the recommendations at the beginning and then again. And so I just kind of like did a little reorganization to streamline things. Yeah, but that's mostly what I've been working on. So I plan to send this to them by the end of the day. And if you guys, I don't know if you guys want to be copied on it. If you want to take a look, Stephanie, I see, Counselor Franklin, I see you're on. I don't know if you have any time to glance at it and make sure I didn't get anything too wrong, but happy to copy whoever just kind of wants to see.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I would
copy us all on it,
Yeah, I would welcome that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'd appreciate it.
And yeah, I mean, I'll just say, because I think it was, when you showed me the letter from, I forget which DOJ official going to, was it Asheville, North Carolina, where they're saying, hey, you look like you're preparing to do recommendations for reparations that are going to basically violate white people's rights or make them feel like their rights are being violated.
Right.
And, we're gearing up to take you to court. Is like, okay, I was so appreciative when you said that you were going back and trying to address that to kind of make sure that, we're a little more bulletproof on that front.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Just for background, I came across a letter that the current Civil Rights Division, not the real Civil Rights Division where I worked, this this garbage operation.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly the jurisdiction, but it was, like Nick said, it was a place in North Carolina that were trying to pass some type of reparations effort. And it was a city, it wasn't statewide, it was a city. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they did what they did, this Civil Rights Division sent a letter to them warning them that what they were doing was getting ready to violate Title VI, Title VII, 14th Amendment. They just threw the whole, mm-hmm. The whole refrigerator of civil rights salad and said they were violating everything, which is not true, which mm-hmm. is a lie. And so I just wanted to be on the forefront of don't even try that bullshit. We know you're about to come here with this, but you don't have the law on your side. You're trying to make up law and then get a court to back you. But where the law stands, you don't have it. And so, so I just kind of wanted to preemptively put all of that out there. So, at least they think twice before trying to send one of these boogeyman letters to us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It was Asheville, Buncombe County Community Reparations Commission. And they just issued a final report apparently on September 2nd of 2025 that includes 38 recommendations in 5 focus areas: criminal justice, economic development, education, health and wellness, and housing. And they presented their recommendations to the city of Asheville on September 9th. And then they say, after our initial review, we are deeply concerned that many of the recommendations, if implemented, would violate federal civil rights laws, including without limitation, the Fair Housing Act, Title VI, Title VII, equal protection. But what the courts are clear on is that governments are entitled to remedy their constitutional violations. And when governments do it in a blanket way by race, then that does raise the bar to a strict scrutiny. But if it's not a blanket category of race, but if it's actually identifying the specific victims, then that does not implicate strict scrutiny. And then it's a lower, more deferential legal standard that it's easier for governments to clear. And so that's what I was trying to make clear.
So Michelle, is that saying that if we were specifying, as we're specifying more individuals, it's not as strict a scrutiny as if we're be generalizing, like, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. But one of the things I mentioned is, all of the individuals we're identifying do share a race,
yes,
right?
Exactly, right.
They're all Black, but they're not being identified because they're Black. And that's the difference. And I also brought in the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which is what gave reparations to the Japanese Americans that were interned. And it turned out, I don't think we were looking at it side by side when we were making our recommendations, but a lot of our recommendations really follow the same ones that were given to the Japanese Americans. And part of their statute, there was an obligation for the Attorney General to go find the Japanese Americans that were interned. So there was a find obligation. And so I think we need to be clear about that as well. There are people that we can identify, and it's the government's obligation to find them, so give them the relief that they're entitled to. And then I make another distinction about the Japanese cases, because with the internment, those people weren't murdered. And so there were living victims, right? And so they could make the argument, well, you don't have any living victims. Well, no, we don't have living victims because you murdered them. Right? And so I think, and so for that reason, I think it's appropriate to look at their descendants as in a analogous way as a wrongful death claim, right? If someone wrongfully kills your loved one, it's the family that gets to recover from that wrongful death. And so I think that's the argument we're making here is, these people were wrongfully killed and the communities are the ones that suffered. And so the communities are the ones entitled to the relief.
Okay. No, I have to do this Million Man March speech very soon, and I really never studied it before. And one of the things that just came up last night when I was looking about 1994 and the crime bill and then the Contract of America was this strict scrutiny, which was put in place at that point, which to make it harder. Yeah. And I went deep into that rabbit hole, deeper than I've been probably since law school. And so I didn't even remember, but it's so it's really, I don't even know what the right word is, nefarious, malicious, the way that they step by step twisted the law to get this result. Because you had one case that was decided in the 80s where they would approve a legislation that was designed to remedy the effects of racial discrimination. And the courts approved that. And then they said that they were going to approve it because it was a federal program and the federal government had a greater latitude to issue these types of remedies. But then they were going to not approve it if it was a state program because they didn't feel like the state could do, the state was bound by the strict scrutiny standard, but the federal government wasn't. But then they came back 10 years later with a different case where they previously tried to say that there were different standards, right? And so the state, it was going to be harder for the state to do what the federal government could have done more easily. But then they came back 10 years later and they said, because of a doctrine that they made up of congruence, that now that they were looking at a federal plan, they said, well, it doesn't make sense to analyze the federal plan, a federal program differently than a state program. So because the state program has this narrower wheelhouse to operate in, we're going to put the federal government in that same narrow wheelhouse. So it's just clear that they're just making up anything as they go to keep there from being any justice from Black people for the crimes that we've endured. And they just constantly change the standard. Every case basically comes out with a new loophole. As soon as you run to catch up with the last loophole, they make a new one. When you step back and look at it from 100 feet, and you can really see clearly what the game is.
Yeah, it sounds like they just keep moving the goalposts.
Just keep moving the goalposts. And then they move it for so long that they're able to say, oh, too much time has passed. to give relief for this.
Right.
And you're like,
Yeah.
everyone's dead. Everyone who experienced this is dead. I'm sorry. We can't give you relief now. If only you had asked 50 years ago.
Exactly.
And it's like, we did.
Which you did.
Right.
We did.
Yeah. When did we ever say, no, it's cool?
Mm.
Oh.
Wow.
I had a question on the order of the recommendations because, I thought Amy's note was very thoughtful, which is whatever we put up first is going to attract the most attention.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what you all are thinking, but I was almost thinking like criminal justice, education, media, perhaps, and material reparations. Maybe those should be further up, at least in the case of the Canadian TRC. But I think with others as well, the symbolic reparations are the most likely to be done. And so I don't know if those have to be up as high, and symbolic in some ways goes very well with the mental health and the community healing. So just a thought.
So I saw that note, and so I had reordered it differently, and I just want to tell you guys what I was thinking, and we can discuss. I was actually thinking symbolic should go first, and I know it's the lowest hanging fruit, but it's also our apology, and everything is kind of linked to Maryland being complicit and at fault for the constitutional violations. And so I was thinking we should start with symbolic, and then I was thinking maybe then material, due process, community health, public education, mental health. And I was thinking media last because it has the least state hook, and it probably is the thing we're able to do the least about because of the First Amendment. And so I kind of feel like we're including media in the hopes that the media will feel responsible and wanted to take some action on their own to regulate themselves. But that was kind of my thinking in how I reordered it.
Yeah. Could you go over that order one more time? I just want to get
Think
this
about it.
noted so I can, again, pick it up on Monday.
So what I suggested was symbolic only because it has the apology. If the apology was separate from symbolic, maybe I wouldn't put symbolic first, but it's where the apology is. So that's why I was thinking we kind of need to establish that. And then I was thinking material. And so and then everything else that follows is more policy related. And so I did criminal justice, community health, public education, mental health, and then media last.
Okay. Public education and then
mental health,
Okay.
and then media last.
Okay. All right. Got it. I will definitely make a note of that and bring it up on Monday. It makes sense to me, and so I think it's just a matter of, sort of getting the consensus and then having 3PV kind of just copy and paste to move blocks around.
Okay.
I think my fear.
What?
Yeah, I think my fear would be it is the lowest hanging fruit, and it's the easiest one for them to say, okay, I'm sorry with my camera. It's the easiest one to say, we apologize and we're done. So I agree with media last. I was trying to keep the institutions together, but that does make sense. But I can't help but wonder if it would be better to have material reparations. And I don't know if that word's going to be an issue now if we have that first. But to have that and criminal justice and education earlier. Because it is a low, it's the one that the government is going to be happy to just do and say that they met the first priority item that was listed.
Well, yes, except that here again, I would want to say, sort of going into that last part, that whole accountability piece, we need to have that dashboard, and it needs to be publicly viewable, and we need to be able to show, all right, yeah, that's fine. We did the symbolic ones, but how come we're not touching the material ones? How come we're not touching the criminal justice reforms? And there should be some way to keep that up and available for people to see as a way to hold the state accountable for this. It's like, okay, you said, it's like you gave us the green light to go ahead. This is what we've done. Now it's on you to pass the legislation to make this happen. And now part of that is the accountability piece. So, in one respect, I mean, because again, yes, ideally, the way I see it is, doesn't matter the order, as long as we have that accountability mechanism in there, the order shouldn't matter. But yes, knowing how people tend to think about these things, like, yeah, let's do these. Well, okay, yeah, we did that, and well, we maybe didn't do all of that. It's like, no. And so, yeah, they're going to say, all right, well, what, it's like 120 some. All right, let's just maybe take the first 10 or the first 20 of them and start there. It's like, no, this is a whole package. This is all interrelated. It's like, weaving a braid or something like that. You can't just take one piece out without destroying the whole. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, we can put the order in whatever, way we want it. But as I said, I want those accountability mechanisms put in place.
Just a question, would they see the order as us saying this is the most important to the least important, you think?
I think some may try to interpret it as such,
So
but
do we want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So then do we want to work from the space of being the least vulnerable? And if that's the case, I would agree with Michelle in terms of putting material reparations first. And when I say the least vulnerable, like I think about the margins, right? The people who are the most vulnerable are generally at the margin. So we make policies that are targeted towards people who are the most vulnerable because everybody benefits. And I'm thinking of the order of these recommendations in that same way. We feel that material reparations, all of the recommendations are important, but we feel that material reparations is the most potent, is the strongest. And I think that should go up front in case we're thinking of a person or readers that might say, this is the order of, even though we're not saying that, clearly they're naming this first, so this must be the most important. Should we be thinking of it in that way?
Or, the other thing that I would suggest is, that we say, in the introduction to part 2, here are the recommendations we're making. We are not prioritizing them, and saying whatever, just because symbolic is first or materials first, that these are the most important. These are, integral and interrelated, and you can look at them in a particular order, but we're not saying that any are more important or take precedence over the others. And just make it clear, yeah, you might be lazy and only read the first 5 of them, but there's a whole bunch of them, and we expect, action on all of them.
I like the sentence. Yeah. I'm not so certain if the average reader is going to even read that sentence. They may just jump right. That's my only concern. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. I mean, they're all important, but just thinking about the length of the document.
I think if we what I had suggested was doing symbolic first and material second, and the reason I said symbolic first was because it includes the apology. An alternative is we could take the apology out and have that as its own separate thing, and then have everything follow, in which case symbolic could go, the rest of symbolic other than the apology could go much lower, and then material would be there pretty much right after the apology. So that's just another alternative.
That sounds like a good alternative.
And another edit I was making, because I did that big legal justification section together, I want to ask them to remove everywhere it says legal justification throughout the document, because those really weren't legal justifications. And so I'm just, but what they can do is just kind of combine those paragraphs, and it will just be additional support, but it won't be separated out as if it's legal justification when it's not. And I also think for any time we have supporting evidence, my recommendation is to you put that as like an end note, footnote, instead of including it here, because I think it's a little distracting. Which recommendations are you referring to, Michelle?
They are indeed there. It's recommendation 127. Says establish an agency or institution dedicated to implementing. I wonder if it should say like a permanent institution. And then 128 is the dashboard that Nick was referencing, the publicly accessible dashboard. That's great.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, should we add to the funding? I feel like, do we need to specify? I mean, I guess if it's an agency or an institution, then the people will be paid. But I feel like whenever it comes to civil rights, people are a little too eager to ask people to volunteer their time and do free work. And I feel like that's an indication of where your priorities are. And so, yeah, I hope the reparations commission that follows us, I hope they have some funding for them, because it's a lot to ask of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think Amy said something about that in the piece about, recommendations for future commissions, saying that it would be good if you actually paid people, so that we're not just doing this out of the kindness of our hearts.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I mean, is there, as Stephanie mentioned, about if people are going to be too lazy to read the whole thing, if we were to think in terms of, if we're not going to do it alphabetical, which it lets people off the hook, but at the same time, you could say this is an alphabetical order. So right then they know that, so they're not doing that. Is there anything here of our recommendations or reparations that if nothing else happens, we want this to be addressed? Because I feel like whatever that is probably should be first. Do we feel that there's something there that more than anything else, that's what we want them to pay attention to, if they're going to be lazy and just skim and browse whatever?
I'm always going to go with the material reparations for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just in a number of these commissions that we've seen around the country, people want to skip that part. And some of the symbolic recommendations, as you mentioned, Commissioner Coles, like the apology, that some of that has been done in some places, and some of it seems, relatively easy to do. I think the material reparations for me would be.
I agree. Yeah. I feel like, and if there was only, if we're only able to get one material reparation, I would like to see a payment go to the families of the people who were lynched.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that would be such a powerful message to send of justice.
Yeah.
Like that'll hit headlines.
And it's the people who were harmed and who were most impacted and who've waited for justice for decades, that quite frankly, it will still be hollow in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because some of these things are almost in ways irremediable.
Definitely.
Right? But it does show a tangible, very practical something towards justice. And I think too, it falls within that kind of legal framework, where, these are the people who were victimized.
Yeah.
And so this was a harm. And so since it was a harm, here's the redress.
Yeah.
So I there's a direct connection there that I think is very important.
Yeah. So that's an important precedent.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of another change that I a big edit that I made in the report. At the end of section 1, the 3PV, they identified themes that they observed from the case studies. And I don't think we should identify themes. I think we should issue findings. And I think our remedy has to be predicated on those findings. And so I just kind of reframed those themes and turned them into findings. So substantively, it didn't change much, but it made it more declarative statements as opposed to observations. So I can give you an example of that.
Yeah, because I mean, as I was going back over that, as I'm thinking about that, the one thing that I would suggest is that we include, Maryland was a southern state. It lynched like a southern state, and just by that one criterion, I think it's safe to say, yeah, I mean, for all the cosmopolitanism we like to think, Maryland possesses, especially, sort of living in that I-95 corridor between Baltimore and DC. It's like, nope, let's look at how many lynchings happened in this area. That'd be about the only other thing that and again, if we're talking about it as a finding, then it's like, yes, we have found that.
We have found. Yeah. So they had like number one theme. They had it labeled accusations without due process. And I changed it to say lynchings occurred in violation of the victim's due process rights. And so now it's like our recommendations are linked to that. They're because of these findings, we are making these recommendations.
Right.
So it's just a little stronger.
Yeah. So instead of recurring themes, I'll just do this now.
But no, I already have it on my draft is heavily redlined. So
okay. Because I'm not seeing that on the.
Remember, I did a Word document separately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, none of my stuff is in there. Yeah. Because remember, I told you I didn't see how I could redline in there, and I don't know.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a Word document on my computer where all my edits are in redline, and so, yeah.
Okay. Then I would say send that. I can open it up as a Google Doc.
Okay.
It should hopefully reflect that, but then we can also get that to them as well. Because I think that's going to be an important thing. And as I said, just on this one up for now, I'll just do that.
Take that note. Okay. Yeah. Another thing with the description they have on the coroner's jury, I feel like that should go more in the background section than at the end. And if we move that up to be more like background introductory within part one, then the findings, the general findings and then the media findings will then be back to back. Because I wanted to change the media piece into findings as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So, I'm just going to put as number 8.
I'd like to add one criminal justice recommendation. It was based on some research I was doing, and I saw that people who are convicted of felonies in Maryland are permanently disqualified from jury service. And I saw that there had been some legislation introduced to lift that permanent bar, and I would like to add a criminal justice recommendation to lift that permanent bar.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll just make a note that it's a new recommendation, and I'll add it to the spreadsheet as well, but I just wanted to flag that as a new one. And I did notice, this is a question I wanted to ask them, where they did the legal justifications, I noticed they took off the first sentence of each of the legal justifications. And the first sentence was really where I thought it was stronger, even though it was repetitive, because I used kind of the same first sentence a bunch, but it was still important. And they didn't include that at all. And so I wanted to just kind of ask them about that. I included a comment to find out why. Like, it's almost like they deleted it because it was repetitive, but it was repetitive because it was important. So I feel like if they're going to delete it, then we should find another place to put it where it would apply to the recommendations that kind of all have that same reasoning.
Now, one small thing, but it matters because it's the title, Part 2 on page 82. It's titled Part 2 Reparations Recommendations. Do we want that to say reparations recommendations? Should that just say recommendations? I'm thinking of stuff that Councillor Franklin has mentioned throughout, which is reparations. And Councillor Franklin's views really are the material aspects. And I think Eric, I'll butcher his last name, said something similar.
We will
How
have
about reconciliation recommendations? So we say that instead?
I think it just simply recommendations.
Or just recommendations?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll just, okay. All right. This is all good. So if we've got other things, or other findings, yes. Okay. Okay. So yeah, are there other things that we should bear in mind? And here again, I'm thinking also that maybe we should make that civil rights section letter to Asheville, North Carolina available to everybody on the commission, just so they can see this is why we're acting. It's like sort of moving in this way and sort of setting it up the way we did.
Yeah. I thought you were about to say added to the report. I was like,
that would be interesting, but I mean, again, if we want to talk about the context in which we're working and what we're trying to deal with, I mean, I would not be averse to that, but I could see other folks maybe having some concerns about that.
Yeah, let's just keep it focused on us. I think no distractions, but I think we could share it with delegates or whoever you think needs to be prepared, because we're definitely going to get one of those letters.
Yeah. No,
we should line up counsel now. Stephanie, are you defending us pro bono?
Absolutely.
I'm not licensed in Maryland, so I can't do it.
This absolutely.
Okay. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, as I said, on the whole, I am really happy with what they have there, and again, with Michelle C, with the recommendations you're making, and yeah, if you can send that along, and as I said, I will turn it into a Google Doc, which will hopefully have your redlining in there, and then they'll be able to see that, and then they can do the work to harmonize it all. Which again is probably going to take a fair bit of time, but here again, I mean, once we get everything out there on Monday, and again, hopefully that won't be the last opportunity, but probably the last opportunity for general feedback and comment on that, so that 3PV can get to the work of incorporating and addressing the comments and edits that were made. You know, because at this point, everybody on the commission has had an opportunity. They've had, you know, more than a couple of weeks. And, you know, with one exception, I think, you know, generally most folks have been pretty open and supportive of it, the ones who have, you know, and I think they've made good comments, you know, and again, thoughtful comments. Yeah, so I think, you know, with that, we can close the book and just sort of say, here are the recommendations, you know, it's like recommendations for edits and changes that we've made. 3PV, go to it and work your magic.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
more small thing on page 10, since we changed the title from reparation recommendation, we're going to also have to change that on page 10.
Okay.
It
Mhm.
currently notes repair through reparations. So that could
Mhm.
be just recommendations or repair. I think Eric was seeing repair and reparations as the same thing. I don't necessarily, but either way, we'll want to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I so appreciate your eye for that kind of detail, because I would have missed that completely. And so we'll just say part 2 is recommendations.
Good catch, Dr. Gewerk.
Okay.
I just have one out of the box type of, and you just, and please vote it down, because at this point we need to just get this thing, because December 31st is going to be here any moment now. Because it's a long report, because it's very serious, and it's a lot of, potentially a lot of text and narrative for the Maryland General Assembly to invest time in, and or their assistants to invest time in, and then refer them to the actual person, whoever they're actually working for. Would there be any value to starting, even if it's after our whole table of contents, a brief accounting of a lynching? Like the first thing they see is an accounting of a lynching, so that before they start getting scholastic, they're hit with the personal.
This is the reality that we're talking
This
about.
is what we're talking about.
So
No,
like pick one of the 38 stories
Yes.
as an example to highlight.
Yes,
And
and
maybe-
almost with
yeah.
nothing except boom.
Yeah.
Excellent recommendation. You're saying you want them to feel that.
Yes, and then the rest
Exactly.
happens.
Like you said, before they go into this whole intellectual
Right.
headies. Right. No.
What are we talking
Excellent.
about?
Excellent.
I wonder if we could take an excerpt from On the Courthouse Lawn, and because, you know, that whole book is about the lynchings that occurred in Maryland and are dramatized, and, you know, maybe we could take an excerpt from that if we don't want to write something from scratch.
I don't think I would not recommend writing something from scratch, because again, we're trying to get to the end line. However, I would wonder, is there something with an image? So we do have that image of, what's his name?
Yeah. Is it the Maryland, my Maryland, you know, thing from the Pope?
No, I mean of a person. Is it George?
Is that the Criswell one?
I didn't think. No, we have the actual photograph of somebody who was lynched. I'm not thinking of it. Oh my God, this is terrible.
I thought that was James Reed. I could very well be wrong, but I thought
Because one of them, they're holding his arms right before he's going to be lynched. It's right from the newspaper. Maryland Gazette. Oh, it's so terrible. I can't think of it.
It'll come back.
If it's not Matthew Williams, it's the 1933 gentleman.
George Armwood.
George Armwood. Yeah, I think there's an actual image from the paper. So literally, if that one is impactful enough, that narrative, that picture And then they start reading about all these other persons that we don't have a picture of.
Yes.
We do have narratives for them.
Yes.
Would you put that at the beginning? Would you put that at the beginning of part 1? Or even before part 1? Are you thinking putting it in like the executive summary intro area, or like the beginning of part 1?
I think it should be before we I think to me, it could be after our table of contents. I think it's literally before we start talking about what we're talking about. They are almost like if the photograph on the cover of this report was of a lynching, almost to that effect. That before they get going, this is what we're talking about, and this is who we're talking about among the different people who we're talking about.
I love that, because and you already know the photos tell the story. Before you even get into the details, that visual, that graphic, people, there's a lot being told without a word being uttered.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
I agree.
And whatever that could be in front of executive summary, I don't know what we'd call it, but something.
Well, I mean, again, as I'm thinking just academically, yeah, I mean, starting with, something of a hook to get people in, say, okay, yeah, this is what we're talking about. This isn't just an academic exercise. This is real. And again, I'm just trying to find.
Well, who is it who's getting you to write that? Who wants to interview about Garland King?
Oh, and that was another one. It's like, I was like, hey, I'm happy to talk, and they never got back to me on it.
Oh, they didn't know.
Yeah.
So question: are we thinking about this photo being on the cover of the report?
Emily's saying a preface. I hadn't thought of that myself. I really wanted it to be. If it's on the report and inside again,
yeah,
I don't want it to be. Wouldn't want it to be.
I think
lost.
that's going to attract people, like on in both spaces, right? I think having an image on the cover of the report is powerful.
George Armwood, okay.
Yeah, that's the one with him with the police. I'm just now trying to find the one which I think was from James Reed, which again I don't know well because I'm using DuckDuckGo. This is really all right. Hold on a second.
Because a preface could be as short or as long as one wants it to be.
Yeah.
And again, the last thing I want is to make anything longer or make it a process.
Right.
So just added a powerful quote from Terry Ann Scott, where she makes the connection to racial terror lynchings of the past and the present, just in case that would be something, if we do have like a preface.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is a image of the James Reed lynching in 1907. It's one of the few that we actually have pictures. Now, here again, if we're going to go with something like this, we may not want to put that on the cover, and sort of at least provide some sort of trigger warning ahead of and maybe just go with the
I mean, we do, and this isn't me reneging, but because we do want them to keep reading.
Right.
And this is the type thing where I'm like, I put it down. I mean, I don't put it down. I'm never going to pick it up again, but I'm like, wow.
Wow. And it's interesting. I have the opposite effect. I see
Really?
something like that, and it makes me want to read more.
I wouldn't not read it, but I probably couldn't read it just like that.
Right then, you would have to give it a minute.
Whereas if it's the narrative and then that, and this is a terrible analogy, gentler photo of George Armwood, where he has the two people carrying him, then, and you hear the story or you read the story, then your imagination takes it to what happened after this photo, which is this basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we're having this discussion because I do think we need to think about the reader. Because I didn't even, so when I saw the George Armwood photo, even though I know what all of that meant, I'm like, we need something that's going to grab more. And see, for me, the James Reed photo was like, that's the photo. Right. But I know people have certain sensibilities.
Okay.
And
so for my, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying people have certain sensibilities and I want to be I just want to be mindful of that because again, those are things that I'm drawn to, that I'm going to read. Like I'm going to dive in like, ooh, what happened here?
Then my thought is this is at the end. At the beginning is the George Armwood photo, which is he's there and you read it. And then at the end of it, that's like for people who've started phasing out. But at the end is this image. So it's like, so you can't leave this alone. Now, of course, the fear is that do they get to the end?
Yeah, I don't know. What do others think about?
Yeah, I mean, that's why, on the one hand, trying to be mindful of those sensibilities, not putting the actual James Reed picture, say, on the cover, but putting the Maryland, My Maryland drawing on there, which approximates and conveys that message and sort of lets you know straight off, yeah, we're not playing around here. And then maybe sort of with the preface that we do, and maybe even use the James Reed case, because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he the one that was, hanged, they did all of this, horrible stuff, and then they, they buried him, then they exhumed him, and then, further, did horrible things to the body, and maybe just to sort of say, yeah, here's a story, to kind of give you a sense of what we're talking about. And here is an image, and I would say maybe put that in, to the preface.
Well, we could mention this or bring this up on Monday too,
Yeah.
and let the rest of the commission have some say-so.
Yeah, because I
I think
know
it's a good conversation to have. I do. I think it's a good one to have. Because there are people that it's difficult for them to see those types of images.
Michelle? I mean, either Michelle.
Either Michelle.
Correct.
I can't see the images. I don't recall the images. So I'm kind of just deferring to you guys on this because I'm not really as plugged in on this one.
Oh, well, if you want, I can pull stuff up and try to share the screen if that will make it easier for you to see
follow.
that.
Okay.
Let me see here.
I'm gonna have to jump onto my cell phone. I gotta get my son from the bus, so let me swap over.
Okay. In the meantime, here is the Maryland, My Maryland piece.
Okay.
And let me see if I can stop there and right there, share screen, where it is. And then I think this is the James Reed one, which was the actual lynching in 1907. And let me see if I can get George Armwood. There we go. Okay, so I'll stop sharing there. And let me see. Okay.
I think my instinct would be a combination of what both you know, Commissioner Creary, and also Commissioner Haley, which is if we could have the Maryland, My Maryland on the cover, Armwood could still be early on, and then read perhaps towards the end of part 1 before the recommendations. Just one thought.
Yeah. Now, the one thing is I recall when I was doing this work with my students at Bowie, the Sun still holds the copyright to that. And so we would need to get permission. And when I inquired, God, it's almost 10 years ago now, they said they were asking for $300. I don't know if they would ask for more, or if we could ask them, since this is a state entity, if they'd be willing to donate it. I mean, especially we had Armstrong Williams there to, share his thoughts. So maybe, this could be another moment of collaboration, but it would certainly help. I'm just not sure. Well, I think that's something, a conversation we can have on Monday.
Visually, I do think that the illustration probably works better as a cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost feel like I've seen it before, but I have seen it before, but I feel like I almost feel like I've seen it as a cover before. And then you see a real picture,
Mm-hmm.
which will still be a shock to the senses of those who are probably not.
Having seen enough of these, that thing still hits hard. It's like, whew, and again, it just sort of reminds me again why, I've stopped looking at all of these videos of Black men being killed, on cell phones. It's like, no, I don't need to see this, and at the same time, I think, having at least the still image there makes a point and says very clearly, this is what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not going to say another thing. That's it. That's it. Muting.
You don't have to mute yourself, Chris. But I think just in terms of things to bring up on Monday, talking about the order of the things, and we're talking about putting material in front of symbolic at this point.
I would still put the apology as the first thing. And I think I haven't done this yet, but I think we may even want to write out what that apology would say, like maybe having them acknowledge certain specific things. I would have that come first, and then any remedies to follow after that.
Okay.
I love that idea of writing out what the apology would say. Otherwise, it could be very unsatisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same here. Great suggestion. Great suggestion.
Yeah. Does anybody want to take a stab at drafting that, or?
I could take a first stab at it because it's going to tie in with the whole legal analysis piece. I'm going to try to replicate that language. So I could take a first stab at it, and then anyone can, edit it after that. But I'm basically just going to have them accept responsibility for our findings.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I it could be the beginning of whatever legislation where they have that language that's like recognizing the following, and then everything kind of comes after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or should we maybe do, sort of like in the form of the bill, whereas, 38, documented cases of racial terror lynching, whereas,
right,
no
we could do it that way.
Accountable, whereas, no apology has ever been issued. Therefore, now be it resolved that we, the state of Maryland formally apologizes for and then you just
Could you write that, Nick? That sounds good. Could you start it off? That was good.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah,
apology could follow after that.
yeah, I can put that structure together and send that out, and email it, so then you can tweak it and add and do what you need.
And then one thing I would raise, and I know I've already raised this, with you, Commissioner Carreri and Commissioner Coles, but I do think we may be the only committee that has had public members, and both Councillor Franklin and myself have been involved for years now. And my students with me going through each one went through all the transcripts and the coding, and Councillor Franklin helped write the final report. And I just think one easy way of addressing that could be including on page 7 or 8, under where it says, over the course of the commission's work, the following people have served, including, after it goes through everybody, something like Reconciliation Committee public members, because that then enables including those of us who have been Reconciliation Committee members, but we're not listed on the website under Reconciliation Committee. We're not listed here, our names don't come up, and yet have taken on very substantial stuff for years. And then anybody else who was part of that, if Eric or, but I would just put that out there, because I think structurally, I think we've been in a kind of interesting situation, Councillor Franklin. And I do think we should be acknowledged as part of the committee, since we have been.
Yeah,
Dr.
absolutely.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thoughtful recommendation.
So let me see.
So that could go under project managers with everybody listed there, like the last category, but it at least acknowledges and includes all of us. Thank you. Commissioner Haley.
Yeah, I had added a comment with that, and I also didn't see anywhere where we mentioned like Heritage Associates. Maybe I missed it, but there are other people that were heavily involved in the work. And so I included you guys, and I also included Heritage Associates, and I can never remember the name of the people that were at every hearing. Healing and Learning. Did I get it right?
Healing
Learning,
and Growing?
Healing and Growing.
I'll look it
Something
up.
and growing. It's terrible. I can't remember the last
Yeah.
one.
I want to acknowledge them. Also, the state police, the state troopers were at every hearing providing protection. So obviously different level involvement than you guys had. But I was just thinking of other people that we may want to acknowledge. But yeah, just put that out there.
And I know there's going to be a list that lists everybody who's been involved at some point, because I was contacted by Commissioner Millen to get the names of all the students who did at least one transcript. But it does feel different when there's been some of us who've been on the committee the entire time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, you're there now, so
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr.
if there are others that we need to include, just hit enter and add names as you think appropriate. But we've got the space, and as of right now, you're on there.
Heritage Associates is mentioned once under Montgomery County. I'm just doing, obviously it should be mentioned more prominently than that. But.
Yes.
Chris, I noticed your name appeared twice, and I wasn't sure if it was supposed to. I added a comment for that. You appeared as a commissioner, but then you also appeared as staff. Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Yeah, it really, because for the first few years, it was Tim Baker, it was Maya Davis, and it was then me. But I was there from the beginning, and Emily Only Squires was there from the beginning. So yeah, so in trying to do the staff, yeah.
Okay.
Because at first I thought, well, why am I not? So I thought that's right, because I wasn't a commissioner from the beginning. I was there from the beginning, but I wasn't the commissioner from the beginning.
Got it. Okay.
All right. Other things, because again, I also want to be mindful of people's time. Just off the top of my head, thinking about it, Michelle Coles, at the executive team meeting, they were wondering what we were going to be saying at the MLMP conference next weekend. Basically saying, don't go into too great detail, kind of just talk about broad themes and topics, because it's still in process. And, if we start saying, here are the specifics that we're throwing out there, people are going to hear that, they're going to see that, and they're going to expect that. And so if there are changes, we might want to just sort of talk about, here are the 8 categories, subcategories, and maybe 1 or 2 specifics, but not going into great detail.
I haven't finished it, but did you get a chance to open the draft I sent you, the PowerPoint?
I did see that, yes, and that's going to be on my next list of things to do today. Is to kind of go through that, and also just and again, bearing in mind that we're only going to have about 20 minutes, so we'll need to limit the number of slides.
So just look at the level of detail that's in that. I haven't finished it, but it kind of gives you a snapshot of what I was thinking. And it's basically what you said, like identifying the 7, 8 categories, however many categories there are, and then identifying kind of those big, big buckets. I mean, as a commission, we've already voted to approve the recommendations. So that should be fine, I think, to share. But if they, if it's more about, they just want to control the order in which people are briefed on it, then we can give fewer details. But yeah, I was just doing it at a real high level, like saying, we're gonna have recommendations in criminal justice and education, and criminal justice, we're looking at the following categories. So that's what I was thinking we would be able to say.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. So yeah, as I said, I will go in and add to it as well.
Okay. Is there any information about the rollout plan and when we're going to start briefing people?
Chair Fakunle has been in touch with Delegate Pena Melnick, and I'm presuming they're going to start working on doing that. But sort of the strategizing meeting that Commissioner Snowden and I had, we're kind of talking about trying to do a press conference round about December 22nd or 21st or 22nd, whatever that Monday is, which would be right around the anniversary of I think it was Henry Davis lynching in December of 1906. So, but to have a press conference there after we've done some briefings, so that way.
Do we really want to do a press conference the week of Christmas?
I know.
Can we not do it the week before?
I mean, I'm thinking, either way, I mean, the important thing is that we do it before this, the General Assembly comes back into session. And I'm not sure what that is.
I mean, I would say if we're just trying to get before they get back in session, it would probably be better to wait until January than I don't think we want to get caught in the Christmas, New Year's, everyone tune out.
Yeah. I would say, let's bring that up on Monday.
Yeah, because people will start taking vacation. I know people will start taking vacation that week. But so we're not planning to do anything before we release the report. We're not planning to have any meetings with legislators, the governor, anything like that.
Yeah, that's what Chair Fakunle and Delegate Pena Melnick will hopefully work on. But we kind of just off the top of our heads figured, yes, let's brief the governor, brief the attorney general, leadership of the General Assembly, both Democrats and Republicans, if they want to listen, the Legislative Black Caucus, and again, in terms of, talking about who should be doing this, you were recommended highly as one of the people that should be in on that, since you've had such a significant role in crafting and the recommendations and the format in which we've put them. So yeah, we'll probably be tapping you to join us on one or more of these briefings.
Okay, well, just please let me know dates as soon as possible for me to like put it in my calendar, because I'm always juggling childcare. So the more
Yep.
advanced notice I have will improve my odds of being able to participate.
Okay. Yeah, as I said, we'll bring that up on Monday. Because I
Okay.
know we got a whole lot of moving parts here that we've got to kind of, again, make sure that we can work in harmony as we're bringing this to its inevitable end.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Other thoughts? I mean, and again, I think we've done a lot here today, which is encouraging. All right.
I just love seeing the anonymous icons as I look at the document.
Yes.
What does that mean? Anonymous icons.
Well, there's an anonymous jackalope and anonymous coyote.
Oh yeah, I've got coyote, elephant, and llama.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't realize that it would change from individuals. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Is that what's showing who's making what edits?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because there were some. I was looking at some. Somebody. It's like comments were made, and it was anonymous, whichever animal. So I guess it's possible to come in and do that without necessarily showing who you are, which I could
Not
have
helpful.
some problems with. But at this point, I'm not going to worry about it too much.
Yeah.
I must be the anonymous llama or elephant. Who knew?
I think it just automatically did it. I don't know why.
Oh.
I don't know why, but it automatically did it.
Let's see. Yeah.
One other thing too that I wonder if it's worthwhile talking with the commission, and I don't know because I know it's recorded, but if the governor doesn't create a permanent board to monitor the implementation of recommendations, I wonder if it's worthwhile, doesn't have to be now, but to start thinking, is there a backup? Like, would one of the universities be willing to undertake this? What could that look like? Or at least just start the thinking of that, because I know that I believe there was a Native Institute up in Canada that really took the lead of holding the Canadian government's feet to the fire. There may be something public as well, but they're the ones who made clear that only the symbolic were being implemented. So that could be post-report, but just something to consider.
Yeah, and something else. Again, sort of here in California, once again, Gavin Newsom has vetoed, a bunch of things, sort of coming from the recommendation, the recommendations of the Reconciliation Commission here. So here, and again, given what Governor Moore has said, I think, having a plan B, for accountability is going to be a really good idea.
Yeah, Dr. Gaverk, that's a very good idea. And I think I know that Native American organization that you're talking about, because I read something recently that they had, I think, posted or submitted a report about what things hadn't been done, and it was quite a bit. Quite a bit.
Absolutely. The Yellowhead Institute.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Maybe it would be a good idea to have a third party have some type of role, regardless of what the state creates, just because politics changes and you get someone new in that doesn't want to prioritize this and it could just silently disappear. So maybe we should institute something at Bowie or Loyola or wherever, where there is someone tracking and keeping an eye on it and submitting a report to the legislature on what they're seeing, like annually.
Kind of like some monitors in some way.
Monitors
Like
of the
when they do a
monitors.
consent decree. Yeah, like when they do consent decrees, they
Yeah,
have these monitors often. so.
exactly. Outside monitors. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's actually something we should probably get in on. Yeah, I'll put something along those lines in implementation, so that it's just one of the recommendations in that last piece of, looking at implementation.
And do you have something about making sure that whoever's doing this is, you have funding, but that the people doing the monitoring work, that there'll be funds for them, or whoever's implementing this will be paid?
That's a good, yeah, we'll say including payment.
And I think 3PV had mentioned that there wasn't a summary on that section. Did you get a
I
chance to add
I put one in there.
Okay, great.
There was something else I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was. Doggone it. I'll probably think of it about 5 minutes after I sign off.
That's how it usually works, right?
Yeah. Something having to do with the implementation plan. The external monitors, implementation. Yeah, I'll, as I said, think of it probably about 5 minutes after. So, but in the meantime, I don't want to hold people up, because I know, it's close of business where you are now. So, I don't want to impose on your weekend.
What was that, Nick?
No, I just, I want to be mindful of time, because it's 3 minutes to the weekend where you are now. So, and I don't want to take any of your time, because, hey, weekend time, family time is important. So, again, thank you all for the great conversation, the great ideas, and, again, up to the minute, real time edits and things that we're doing here. I think it's going to make it a much stronger piece. And so, thank you all. And unless anybody wants the last word, we can call it a meeting, and we'll see you all on Monday.
Thank you all. Great meeting.
Nick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.